Good morning. My name is Tiffany Johnson, and I just want to start off by saying that I really did enjoy taking this course. As an African American, it's really important to, one, understand my history, and two, continue growing to ensure that I am culturally competent and am knowing and being self-aware, honestly. I think that something I really pride myself in is taking accountability for learning my history and learning more. With Elliot's overall test, it wasn't more so about being black or white or how they were treated. It was more about the discrimination in the test. The prejudice of the overall thought process. So we were able to see how they think, not only towards minorities or a different race, was more so in general, so it could be against beliefs, ideas, races, sexualities, anything. So that was interesting to apply it differently. The next article or module that I really liked was Crenshaw, the Crenshaw story, by Kimberly Crenshaw. I did not know about the actual article and the information within the article. It was interesting to see the actual definition given for intersectionality, because I was never I love the way she teaches. I love the way that she goes about her practices in order to inform. I remember freshman year of high school, I found Jane Elliott and kind of stuck on her. I was like, this lady understands what African Americans are going through, and it was mind-boggling to me that she was so comfortable and confident in calling out the racism, the blatant racism and entitlement of Caucasian individuals. The first video that I had watched over was for the course was the blue-eyed test. And I remember just thinking, oh, it's about black and white people. It's about seeing how black people are treated. And then I seen your comment and say that it's much deeper than that. But as I seen in this course, it was a lot of things that I didn't know and that were very interesting to me. So just to start off, during our first journal, week 1, I discussed the Jane Elliott video, which I love Jane Elliott. I love her cause. I love what she does. So with Elliot's overall test, it wasn't more so about being black or white or how they were treated. It was more about the discrimination in the test. The prejudice of the overall thought process. So we were able to see how they think, not only towards minorities or a different race, was more so in general, so it could be against beliefs, ideas, races, sexualities, anything. So that was interesting to apply it differently. The next article or module that I really liked was Crenshaw, the Crenshaw story, by Kimberly Crenshaw. I did not know about the actual article and the information within the article. It was interesting to see the actual definition given for intersectionality, because I was never she defines intersectionality as the intersection or interconnection of race, gender, sexuality, and social class, and how things overlap when it comes to the disadvantages and oppression. So now I see it's not just about like us merging cultures or merging races. It's literally a combination or how things overlap when it comes to oppression and disadvantages. So it's a whole different outlook. So it's not just for the LGBTQ community or just for the Latino community, and bringing awareness to how those two come together. I think most of the time when I have seen the term is when I've seen it in those contexts. So that was really cool to see, and see how I could apply that to the knowledge I know. Another passage that we reviewed that I really enjoyed was the Crusette story, as myself being a first generation African American student, it was seemed like that story was my story. Going to orientation and not knowing what to do, what was going to happen. As you know, with Ball State orientation is an overnight thing. So we thought that my family stayed with me or we all stayed together, and it was a whole different ball game. So that is something that really stuck out to me because I was not aware of it, and it was so many different elements that I was so unknown that I almost felt like, am I supposed to be here, in a sense? So it comes to that self-acceptance and feeling like if you're good enough. And that's where I related with Crusette, because she went through those challenges of calling her mom and crying on the phone about her classes. It was very interesting to see how she was able to put that into her own story, release that, and see that so many people have engaged with this, so that experience isn't just one-sided, and seeing how universities kind of also needs to kind of step up that aspect of you're in the need to know, like you need to know, you kind of are expected to know these things, or I should say. So I will say that Ball State has a pretty good first year, helpful, handy tool system. But then after that first year, you're kind of like, what do I do now? So I will say that overall, just universities in general, I wish that we had buildings, the upkeep, and keep things going. Would this still be like a predominantly black neighborhood? Would this be the elite black neighborhood? Or would this be a low income, a project area of minorities? So what could have happened to this area if we would have maintained ownership? I also was very interested in the extent I've read a lot about Madam C.J. Walker. I've been to the Madam C.J. Walker numerous times, building multiple times. So I know about her story, and she is very impactful and insightful and inspiring. But I just didn't know the backbone of her impact on the black community. She was supplying the opportunities and the resources for African American growth in particular. So that was very interesting to see how she was almost creating generational wealth amongst the black community. I just wish that we were able to have the knowledge to better have taken care of it, or I wouldn't even say take care of it because it was kind of snatched from us. But if we had the knowledge and power, I would say, to have maintained this. I mean, the Madam C.J. Walker building is still there, but I just don't feel like it's being used the way it could be used. If you've been inside it, you've seen it. It hasn't had a lot of upgrades. So I just think that if there was a time we could, and we had the resources and people cared enough to come along and build Indiana Avenue back up into a black wall, to see about how we could bring minorities together to uplift each other, it could be powerful. Then it comes to redlining. I knew about how discrimination was in the financial system and things like that. I just always associated with systemic racism, but I did not know the actual term for it. It was redlining, declining loans and things because they felt like we could not pay those back. Lastly, so I want to start off with this quote that I seen in the reparations article by George Santayana. Said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, but when we repeat harmful, revisionist retellings of the past, not only do we repeat the same mistakes, we enable future mistakes." This spoke out to me before I went to make my action plan, because I was like, how can we even create a Black Wall Street? How can we even go to an anti-racist America or society if we don't know the history and what we've done in order to repair it. You can't fix something if you don't know the cause of the problem, honestly. So in a world or society without racism, prejudice, just judgment, for me, would be a major acceptance and uplifting society. Even if we only did it in the United States, even if we only did it in Indiana, if we even only did it in Indianapolis, one small county, I feel like that area could be a force to be reckoned with. Because just imagine the amount of things that can be completed and done if you have a group of support who aren't there to put each other down, who aren't there to limit the abilities of others. I would think that that would be a inspirational story to tell. So my action plan to create a society of anti-racism and intersectionality, I would utilize more anti-racism and intersectionality knowledge, widespread, a lot more depth on the history. So even being taught in schools and taught in jobs, workplaces, just so we are knowledgeable about where we've come, so we can know where we want to go. I think what comes with racism is ignorance and the lack of knowledge regarding each other. The next thing I think we really would have to work on is the systemic racism within our country, within our state. Like I said in an article, Indiana was the last known area for a lynching. So that's already, alarming for me. So I feel like we would have to work on the racism we have within our judicial, our financial, our healthcare system. Because sometimes if you look at it, we have obvious racism in our face that we haven't addressed, things that are keeping minorities from getting a step ahead. I think within those systems, minorities are continuously oppressed because of the policies that they have put in place. Lastly, I think after taking this course and reviewing some of the content, I see myself wanting to become more informed. I think a lot of the time I thought I knew a lot about Black history, but we can always learn something. Learning is continuous, especially when it comes to Black history. You can learn something about our history because it's so long. You can learn every day something new. I also want to immerse myself more into different cultures, communities, individuals, not just races. When it comes to different sexualities, different belief practices, I think I want to learn more about those in order for me to be more culturally competent, as I like to believe myself to be. I think I'm an accepting person, so I think that in order to continue that and continue knowing people and being a people person, it is a part of my job to not only learn different cultures and learn different things about people, and that is all. That is my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.